Open first time this year they've had it open. It's a gorgeous evening here in Toronto. Yankees will wrap things up here in this 3-game set. Each team has won a game in this series. This will be the rubber match. Joe Girardi is in his 8th year as the manager of the Yankees. Take a look at the Yankee lineup. They won last night 6-3, pounded out 11 hits. Top of the order is Jacoby Ellsbury. He's been red hot. Chris Young in his last 13 games has 6 extra base hits, part of a 12-for-35 run. Young is in left field, and Brian McCann has put up big numbers against Mark Burley. And as you see throughout the course of the game, there are a lot of hitters in this lineup that have hit well against Mark Burley, and the catcher, Brian McCann, is one of them.
Well, the 36-year-old left-hander won his first 3 starts of this season, receiving tons of run support, but it has not gone well the last couple. He pitched Friday at Cleveland, just went 4 1/3 innings, giving up 8 earned runs. Burley's allowed 24 hits in his last 10 innings, and he has not had career success against this Yankees team.
Defensively behind Burley, this is very important. He obviously pitches to contact. Colabello is in left, Pilar in center, and Carrera in right. Danny Valencia unable to go. Josh Donaldson on the left side along with Ryan Goins. Travis and Encarnacion on the right side, and the veteran Russell Martin swinging a red hot bat is behind the plate.
Very reliable and durable Josh Donaldson, playing in his 27th game at third base. He's DH'd a couple as well.
Burley throws the first pitch in there for a strike, and we are underway. This is the red hot Jacoby Ellsbury. .358 average for Ellsbury. He had 3 hits in the game last night. Burley's ahead quickly, 0-2. Trying to come inside. He misses down and in the dirt. As we mentioned, Mark Burley has a career record of 1-14 against the Yankees. This is his 22nd career start against New York. There's a good changeup, and Burley strikes out Ellsbury.
It's a very dangerous pitch from the left-hander to a left-handed batter. Down and in is that lefty rake zone. You see the grip on the baseball, but look at the action on the ball. Good downward movement. Ellsbury swings right over top of it.
More and more pitchers are throwing arm side changeups to hitters. That lefty on lefty, righty on righty changeup becoming a very effective pitch, and Burley has a strikeout. This is Chris Young. He gets to start in left field. Another strike from Burley. That's just outside the bag at third, and Burley's ahead 0-2. Chris Young's had 40 hits since he's joined the Yankees. He came over to New York last September 2nd. And 23 of those hits have gone for extra bases. He's done a good job in a part-time role.
In there tonight for the lefty Brett Gardner against Burley.
There's a base hit in the left field. Colabello's going to have to cut it off and get it back in quickly. He does, and does a good job of keeping Chris Young at first. Well, you can hear all of the boos for Alex Rodriguez as he is announced as the batter. Rodriguez had a 2-run double in the first inning in last night's game. It's the only hit of the night. He ended up 1 for 5. He drives this one to left. That's going to get down. Colabello over to play it off the wall. He'll hustle it back in. They got a shot at second, but they took a shot at the lead runner. Rodriguez was not running very well, but he ends up at second for the second consecutive night. A first inning double for Rodriguez.
We saw this early last night, Buck, the inexperience of Chris Colabello in left field. Missed a pop-up down that left field line. In this one here, I don't think there's any shot to get Chris Young at third base. He does a nice job playing it off the wall, but you got to come up firing that ball to second base, hold Alex Rodriguez to a single, and keep that double play in order for Burley.
Colabello playing in just his second game in the big leagues in left field. This is Mark Teixeira. On the ground, Encarnacion will flip to Burley. Chris Young comes across to score. 1-0 New York. Teixeira with the RBI, his 23rd of the season.
Good piece of hitting by a run producer. That's what Mark Teixeira does. He does it very well. He's done it his whole career. Didn't hit it hard, but he just got what the defense was giving him. The infield back, nubbed one to the right side. That gets the first Yankee runner home.
So Rodriguez now at third. Brian McCann, the catcher, will step in. He's batting 5th tonight. McCann has a .407 career average against Burley. He's 11 for 27 with a homer. Important for Burley to save this run here. Burley works very quickly, and McCann wasn't quite set. Burley working on the edges, and that's the key for him tonight, Joe.
We talked about that. That's been his whole career. He's not an overpowering left-hander. He relies on location and movement.
It's important for any pitcher to keep the ball out of the middle. I don't care how hard you throw. He made him reach for that pitch. That curveball hasn't had that regular bite we saw last year early in the season. I think that's been another one of the issues that Burley's had to deal with. 1-2. On the ground, foul just outside of first. There's that changeup inside again. That's another changeup he's thrown to a left-handed hitter here in the first inning. He got Ellsbury to strike out on that pitch.
And now we'll see if he goes back away with that cutter. Try to speed up the bat of McCann with the changeup inside. He pulled it foul. See where Russell Martin goes here. I would assume he's going to get away.
There it is. He pokes it to short. Donaldson is there. Burley is out of it. The Yankees break on top. They score a run in the first for a second consecutive night. 1-0 New York. CC Sabathia to the mound when we come back. Just for the second time in his big league career. He's a first baseman on background, and he played 26 games in right for the Minnesota Twins, but there's adjustments going on in game here. Blue Jays lost 6-3 last night. They managed 3 runs on 3 hits in the 9th inning, but they fell short. Josh Donaldson in his last 21 games has hit a lofty .337 with 15 RBIs during that stretch. Russell Martin is on fire, and he's hit well against his former team this season. 5 for 16, including a home run in last night's game. He had 2 doubles and a homer against New York last night.
And they'll face the 34-year-old left-hander. CC Sabathia makes his 6th start of the season. He's looking to snap a season-opening 5-game winless streak. 2007 Cy Young Award winner in the American League for the Indians.
This is his 6th start of the season. He and Mark Burley both with 200 career wins. Devin Travis over 300 for the season. Travis has 30 hits in 97 at bats. Good start to his rookie year. Tough pitch right on the outside corner. That has been the one thing we've seen, Joe, over the last couple of games. Pitchers are starting to pitch Travis away.
Well, the book is out a little bit now after this first month of the season. He had a tremendous month, but now it's time for him to make adjustments to these pitchers.
Lays off that breaking ball.
And that's a nice job laying off that pitch. I spoke with Devin about that today, and he said, yes, I'm seeing more off speed, more sliders, but I'm seeing them picking them up, and I'm swinging at them even though they're out of the zone. So he needs to make that adjustment.
Hits it hard. One hops it to the second baseman. That's Jose Perella, just into the lineup, just activated off the DL. Take a look at the defense for the rest of the Yankees. In the outfield, Chris Young, Jacoby Ellsbury, and Carlos Beltran. A couple of Gold Glovers in center and right. Chase Headley, he's a Gold Glover at third. Drew moves back to shortstop, his fifth start. Perella's at second. Mark Teixeira has 5 Gold Gloves over at first, and Brian McCann behind the plate.
Chris Young gets that start in left field today in place of Brett Gardner with the lefty Burley on the mound, and Young has been swinging a hot bat, 6 home runs early in this season.
Josh Donaldson. There's that breaking ball. He drops it on the outside corner. Donaldson has a good game plan. He'll make up his mind what he wants to look for early in the day, and he'll stick with it. I think earlier in his career he would have a game plan, but he would deviate and allow the pitcher to take him out of his game plan. Hits that one right off the end of the bat.
And I think that comes with the experience Josh has had. He's become a perennial slugger in this game now, and MVP candidate, and that's what these good players do. The superstars do that. They'll go up looking for a pitch. Hard to do it now with 2 strikes, but until they get there, go up looking for a certain pitch. They've got the reports on these pitchers. They've seen video on them. They know what they're trying to do to attack hitters.
Chases that breaking ball down and away. 2 down. First strikeout of the night for Sabathia.
Good slider by Sabathia, and that's where he wants that pitch. He wants to bury that thing down in the zone. You see the grip on that. Look at the rotation on the baseball. That's good late break. Josh unable to pick up that spin on the ball and chases it.
Two outs now. Jose Bautista came into the game as a pinch hitter in the 9th and worked a walk off of Andrew Miller. Bautista, by walking, was able to bring the tying run to the plate. Bautista is still hampered by that shoulder. He was out of the lineup last night, not because of the shoulder problems, just it was a manager's decision to get Smoke in the lineup. Bautista, 2 balls and no strikes. CC Sabathia has had the upper hand in this matchup. Bautista just 3 for 29 against Sabathia.
And so did Michael Pineda last night, and that had to go be a little part of Gibbons' decision.
Brian McCann didn't help the umpire right there. He calls a strike, and McCann drops the ball, and veteran umpires will say, hey man, making me look bad.
Got to catch the ball if you want to strike.
2 balls and a strike. 2 outs in the bottom of the first. You can see those balls on the outside edge, and Bautista's had to deal with those borderline strikes most of the season.
Good pitch by Sabathia. That's a backdoor slider, just trying to catch that outside corner. He got the call from Toby Basner on that one.
I talked to Rick Jacoby about those sliders where Sabathia will throw that one away, and then what he'll do is he'll try to throw one at the back foot. And as a hitter, Rick Jacoby said, I never could hit that until I tried to take it right back up the middle.
Try to stay inside that, not try to come around it. Keep those hands inside the baseball and stay in the middle of the field with that pitch.
Full count, and Encarnacion would be next. Foul back. Bautista got a fastball. But it's interesting, you think breaking ball, I got to pull it. But Jacoby said that Rick Honeycutt, the starter for the A's at that time, really gave him a lot of problems, and he always pulled over and rolled over on it until he started taking it back up the middle. Good take by Bautista. After having those borderline pitches called, he lays off and works him for the walk. Don't forget, there's some great hockey action going on right now. Game 3, Canadiens and Lightning on CBC. Encarnacion, Edwin had conversation with the hitting coach today about his approach. He said the only problem you have is you're swinging at pitches out of the zone. So Edwin says, I got to stay aggressive, but I got to hit strikes.
Well, it's hard enough to hit balls on the plate. You start chasing, and when you're a slugger like Edwin, one of the elite sluggers in the game, you start trying to do too much. You get frustrated that you're not getting a lot of pitches to hit, and you expand that zone. Works against you.
Got the count in his favor now, 2-0. Because Encarnacion and Bautista have had so much success, obviously they get a little extra time in the video room. Pitchers and pitching coaches will really break them down, try to come up with a weakness. Just foul. He made a good pass at that ball.
And that's where Edwin, in a 2-0 count, he may not look for a specific pitch, but he's looking in a specific location. He may be looking middle in right there, and he'll be ready whether it's a fastball or a slider. Got the bat head out front there, just pulled it foul.
Good numbers over the 8-game hit streak for Encarnacion. He's got the count in his favor, 2-1. Laid off that outside pitch. That's a good sign. All those pitches off the plate he hasn't offered at.
You can see Sabathia's approach already. Brian McCann behind the plate. He sets up more middle for that backdoor slider, trying to nibble that outside corner. Did the same thing to Bautista. If he starts catching that outside corner, that'd be very tough on Blue Jays hitters.
Ball 4, pass the baton to the red-hot Russell Martin. Martin had a pair of doubles and then came to the plate in the 9th with the Blue Jays looking for their first run of the game.
Martin was trying to get the Blue Jays back in the game. They hadn't been shut out all year, and he wanted to make sure of that. He got a good pitch, a fastball middle in from David Carpenter coming in out of that bullpen. Blue Jays could not get to Michael Pineda, but they mounted a comeback, but just not quite enough.
Scored 3 runs in that 9th inning, but fell short as Andrew Miller picked up his 11th save. Russell hit his first pitch last night for a double to the alley in right center. First and second, 2 outs. Yankees up 1-0. Of course, Russell Martin caught CC Sabathia in New York. Russell spent 2 years with the Yankees prior to going to Pittsburgh for 2 years. Way outside. Joe, how did that affect you if you had faced a pitcher you caught before?
Well, I always found that if I'm hitting against a pitcher that I know, it played more mind games with me than anything. I think it worked against me. Either that or I just couldn't hit. But it's so difficult because you start playing that chess match in your head. Well, when I caught him, this is what he would do here, and then he would do something else. So then it just becomes a guessing game.
Who makes the first move? Martin stays on that pitch but fouls it along the right side.
Russell's such a good hitter and such a smart hitter that I think it would benefit him in this situation. We'll see what he does 1-2 here, but I'm sure Russell has a game plan for any time in the count, especially with 2 strikes here against CC.
Martin over his last 17 games has hit .357. During that stretch he's had 5 doubles, 6 home runs, and driven in 14. The defense is absolutely straight away, which you don't see very often anymore. Now the second baseman, Perella, has played up the middle a little more, but the outfield is absolutely straight away. Rob Thompson, the bench coach, checking out the defensive alignment. Blue Jays are doing a good job of laying off those borderline pitches.
And Russell now too, he's facing a different CC Sabathia that he caught several years back. CC now aging a little bit, had that knee surgery last year. Velocity certainly has come down. He's becoming a little bit different pitcher than when Russell caught him.
2-2. Strike 3 called. Sabathia stays inside, catches that corner. Blue Jays threaten but don't score in their half of the first.
Trend's 2015 Sport Utility of the Year.
That is a good look here at Rogers Center. Open air baseball for the first time this season, and our neighbors across the street like it. You get a little extra view inside. This is Carlos Beltran, the switch hitting right fielder. There's a line drive into center field. Pilar comes in, makes a chest high catch. One down. Well, Mark Burley doesn't throw very hard anymore and never really did, but over the last 3 seasons, the fastball average has been creeping upwards.
And I think what happens too is when you get a little bit older, a little bit more comes off that fastball, but not only that, you start losing that location.
I think Burley's got a lot of pitching left. I just think he's going through a rough stretch right now. That's tapped in front of home. Easy play for Burley. Chase Headley's retired. 2 quick outs here in the second. You know, I think everybody's kind of assuming, and who knows, Mark Burley's the only one that really knows that this is going to be his last year. His contract is over, but I think he likes to pitch. He's proven that over the course of his career, and you know, I just think he's going through a tough stretch right now.
Well, we saw it in the second half of last season, and he was the first to say that, yes, he was fatiguing when he had his troubles after the All-Star break last season. Figured it out a little bit. We saw a couple decent starts early this season before his struggles came to be again. So it's always going to be a question. He just needs to be so perfect with his pitches. He cannot afford to be middle at all.
Russell Martin didn't mind that pitch. Looked like he had a pretty good break. Just missed the outside corner to Stephen Drew. Mark Burley's not going to pitch tentatively. He is trying to make good pitches, and it's not because he's intimidated. He's just missing his spots. There's a breaking ball. He throws over. Look at how quickly he gets the ball fired. He doesn't waste any time, that's for sure. And there's a good pitch. Ties up Stephen Drew.
And it can be mechanical with his delivery, just like any pitcher. If he's not on top of the baseball working downhill, he'll lose his movement. When you lose that movement, and especially the location for Burley, that's when he gets hurt. But he is so good when he's working the edges of the plate.
And there's another changeup to a left-handed batter. That has been a good combination for Burley. He sets down the Yankees in order in the second. The changeup has worked for both strikeouts. They've come against two lefties early on.
One at the J Shop location at Toronto Eaton Center, level 1. Limit 1 autograph per person per player. No lineups prior to 10 a.m. and limit to the first 150 people. And guys, speaking of Michael Saunders, I spoke to him again today. He did confirm he had his knee drained at the same time that he had the work done earlier in the week. He says he is available to pinch hit today, but more than likely he's going to be sitting now until Friday. He's really disappointed that this is happening, but he also is well aware that it's part of the process. It's in no way a setback for him.
Pilar drops a bunt. It's a beauty, and he beats it out at first. Kevin Pilar, always thinking, drops a bunt down on CC Sabathia and beats the throw to first.
Well, that's what you have to love about Kevin Pilar. You just said it, always thinking. Bunting on Sabathia, and he puts it in a place that it's not going to be playable for McCann, the catcher. Makes CC come off the mound. He's a big man, slow to come off that mound. Once Pilar gets it down on this new turf, he knows the turf's going to make it die. Put it in a perfect place.
Good start to the inning for Pilar. Chris Colabello had a couple of hits in his Blue Jays debut here last night, including an RBI double. Goes after the first pitch, fair ball down the left field line. Pilar's around second. He's headed for third. He'll stop there. Colabello, his second double in as many nights for the Jays. Pilar goes first to third easily. This ball just inside the bag.
Look at the ball dying on this artificial turf. The new turf at Rogers Center is much thicker. It's played much slower. Opponents trying to get a feel for that during batting practice. The Yankees first time in here. We're taking a look at that. But we saw the bunt by Pilar, the double by Colabello. Young had to come and get that ball.
Ryan Goins, the infield up the middle is back. They're in at the corners. Breaking ball. Down and away. This is where the hitting coaches, both Brooke Jacoby and Eric Owens, have encouraged the bottom part of the order. Just turn the lineup over. Don't do anything dramatic. Just figure out a way to get on base. Line to Headley. Good read by Pilar as he is able to get back easily. Headley speared that liner.
And that's where Ryan Goins has to find a way to get a ball on the ground to the right side, even if he takes a bunt with him. But this is not a time to stay inside the baseball and work on your proper hitting mechanics, as that doesn't do a whole lot of good. Even though he hit it hard to the left side, you got to hook something to the right side of the field there.
So now another lefty bat, Ezekiel Carrera, facing Sabathia for the first time. Still in at the corners. A couple of Gold Glovers in, Headley and Teixeira. He pulls that ball past the bag and foul. Carrera's in right field. There was a chance it was going to be Danny Valencia, but Valencia sprained his ankle 2 nights ago and still a little bit gimpy. So he is not in the starting lineup. Valencia came out and worked out, took ground balls at third, took his regular turn to BP. Appears to be close to being ready to play. Breaking ball, strike 2. It's 0-2.
That day off tomorrow should help Valencia and Saunders. Couple games off, tomorrow being a day off for the Blue Jays, back at it Friday, gives them a few days.
Ball in the dirt, and Carrera, he's really got to shorten up and put the ball in play here. You keep the ball on the ground in the middle of the diamond, you're going to score a run.
Nice job by Brian McCann right here. Take for granted what catchers do behind the plate. Good slider from Sabathia. That's exactly where he wants to throw that pitch, to try to get a swing from Carrera. He's got trust in his catcher to get down and block it, and he did it perfectly.
On the ground through the left-right side into right. Pilar's hit. Here comes Colabello. The ball is cut off, and Carrera has given the Blue Jays the lead. A 2-strike, 2-run single for the right fielder, Ezequiel Carrera.
A big hit for Carrera. He stays on this slider from Sabathia. He laid off the one in the dirt. This one's elevated a bit more. A little bit of a defensive swing. He's got 2 strikes, but he's able to stay on that ball. The one thing he's doing is hitting it hard on the ground to score the 1 run for sure, but he got the bonus plan by that ball rolling into right field. Drives in 2 Jays.
1 out, back to the top of the order. Exactly what the doctor ordered. Travis grounded out to the second baseman. His first time up. There's another pitch away, and he chased. Pilar got it started. Eric Owens, the assistant hitting coach, he is in charge now. Of course, with Jacoby serving the suspension. On the ground, this could be 2. Drew to Perella to Teixeira, double play. But the Blue Jays take the lead. Clutch hit by Carrera. He comes up with a 2-run single. 2-1 Jays.
Listen to it on sportsnet.ca or on iTunes. And I'm happy to be joined now by the 2 gentlemen that host that show, Ben Nicholson-Smith and Arden Zvelling. Ben, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about At the Letters, and we understand you had a chance to speak to Fergie Jenkins this week on the show.
Yeah, we did. It was a lot of fun, Barry, and the show basically is going to be a lot of Blue Jays discussion. We're going to break down the roster, the moves. So much happens in 1 week, and this week it was a lot of fun to talk to Ferguson Jenkins, Canada's first Hall of Famer and a 7-time 20-game winner. So it was a lot of fun.
And Arden, a lot of discussion about the current state of the Toronto Blue Jays. I'd imagine Mark Burley's name has come up. What is the discussion right now around Mr. Burley?
There's a lot of talk right now about whether he's healthy, whether Father Time is catching up with him, you know, how much he's got left. He hasn't looked great so far. Tonight he certainly looks fine, and he's trying really hard to turn things around. We'll see. He's a control guy, doesn't throw very hard. We'll see how much longer he can go. All
right, gentlemen, thanks for joining us. It's At the Letters. It's on sportsnet.ca and on iTunes. Buck?
Thank you, Barry. This is the second baseman, Jose Carrera. Carrera suffered a concussion in spring training. March 22nd, he ran into the outfield wall. He lines this one into center field. Colabello took a bad angle. Here's a throw to second base. It's on line in. Carrera's safe with a good slide. Pilar constantly making very accurate throws, threw one right on the money, but Carrera eluded the tag at second. John Gibbons is checking with the video room.
Well, look at the jump. Now, Pilar has a long ways to go get this ball, but Colabello came in too shallow. He took a very poor route to that ball. Pilar does what he does out there. He tries to make an incredible play by cutting that ball off and making that throw to second base.
Boy, look at the slide by Pirella. He knows it's going to be close. He looked like he got his right hand in on the bag. And he's telling the umpire mid-slide, I'm safe, I'm safe.
And he's diving into second, realizing Travis has his back to him, getting that ball from left center field, having to come all the way around with that tag. Nice job by Pirella diving to the shortstop side of the bag.
So the Yankees turn the lineup over. Number 9 hitter has his first hit of the season, Jose Pirella. Ellsbury struck out on the changeup his first time up. Another inside pitch. Ellsbury's been so hot. He's got that hit streak going, and he has really covered pitches away from him, and I think that's why Burley's working him inside early on.
I don't think Mark Burley wasn't watching the first 2 ball games of this series.
There's a bouncing ball, and they got Pirella hung up. Burley makes a good throw, and they're going to get him at third. Mark Burley, the Gold Glover, erases a runner from scoring position. Pirella, too anxious to move up, gets caught in the rundown.
Well, you called it, Gold Glover, and he just understands the game. What an outstanding job by Mark Burley. As soon as that ball's back to the mound, the first thing he does is look Pirella's off a step or two too far, give the ball up right away, get it in the infielder's hands. Nice job by Josh Donaldson slapping that tag on.
Ryan Goins made a heck of a play taking that low throw. He was trying to get in position, and Burley threw him a tough throw, but he was able to make a play on it. This is popped up by Chris Young. Goins calls for it, and boy, what a turnaround after the leadoff double. Now there are 2 outs and a man at first. Defense, it'll always get you out of jams.
And a pitcher can help himself out by fielding his position.
Once again, A-Rod is welcome to the plate. He had a double in the first. Burley just missed with that first pitch. Burley's quickness will disrupt the timing of hitters as well. You always talk about his quickness shutting down the running game, but it also throws off hitters from time to time. Pretty good pitch, but Rodriguez takes 2-0.
Well, hitters work with rhythm and timing as well, just like pitchers do. So you watch Alex Rodriguez in the box there. He's got his little rhythm. He's got the back one. He wants to get set. Now Burley just gets the ball back from the catcher. Quick sign, delivers.
Ellsbury has 11 steals, but he isn't even thinking about trying to run against Burley. Burley's allowed 59 stolen bases for his career. There's a strike. Rodriguez, a .222 hitter against Burley for his career before that double. Strike 2. Rodriguez was sure that was ball 4.
Good location by Burley on that outside corner. This is where Mark has to live. We've been talking about it. Good pitch and nice job by Russell Martin receiving that pitch, giving the home plate umpire Toby Basner a good look to get that call.
Full count, 2 outs. Ellsbury at first will be cautious on the break. There he goes. Rodriguez fouls it straight back. Rodriguez has 525 career doubles. That ties him with the late Ted Williams, a Hall of Famer, 525. He passed his former teammate Ken Griffey Jr. with that double in the first. A little nubber right back to Burley. Oh, what a good inning for Mark Burley. He gives up a leadoff double, helps himself with a nice comebacker, and ends it by jamming A-Rod.
In Mother's Day as well at the ballpark. For the first 20,000 fans, you'll receive a Josh Donaldson white replica jersey. Go to BlueJays.com for more and enjoy Mother's Day here at Rogers Center. Mike?
Well, hopefully it'll be a great afternoon like this wonderful evening tonight. The roof will be open and you'll be able to treat Mom to a ball game and maybe get yourself a Josh Donaldson jersey. And here is Josh Donaldson leading off the third. CC Sabathia has 208 career wins. He is one behind Vida Blue for all-time wins by a left-handed pitcher. Blue is 24th on the all-time lefty list. The great Billy Pierce, who pitched with the Chicago White Sox, is 23rd. He has 211 wins, so Sabathia is 3 wins shy of 23rd place all-time. That for left-handed pitchers. Donaldson pulls it foul. The Blue Jays, with the double by Colabello, have hit doubles in 26 straight games. They have hit now 60 doubles in those 26 games. Doubles are run producers. Boy, they'll keep the pitcher in a jam.
Colabello's double a big part of that second inning and those 2 runs that the Blue Jays scored. He had a couple hits last night as well since his call-up. It's a nice bat that the Blue Jays have added with the injuries to Saunders and Valencia.
2-2. He didn't get it in there, but got a pop-up over near the camera well. Teixeira gets there and makes the catch. He stayed with it. Mark Teixeira got to the wall, leaned in, and makes a good catch.
Sabathia expresses his pleasure to his first baseman Teixeira. What a nice job getting over there. McCann gave chase too, but watch Mark Teixeira navigate this wall. Looks down. That's not easy to do when you have to take your eyes off the baseball to see where you are along that wall and then go back up and find that ball. Tough play. Teixeira made it look pretty routine.
One down now for Jose Bautista. Bautista walked in the first inning. Five homers and 17 ribbies for Bautista. Still dealing with that sore shoulder. It's his right shoulder. There's another breaking ball away. Bautista injured that shoulder April 21st against the Orioles, and he had been dealing with a sore shoulder. He missed 5 games, and then he's been used as the DH exclusively when he's in the lineup.
Well, it's really hampered John Gibbons in the lineup that he likes to put out there because the Blue Jays are best with Jose in right, Smoke at first, and Edwin DHing.
Broken bat pop up behind second. Barella makes the catch. 2 down. CC Sabathia, former Cy Young Award winner, and you can see his last 5 seasons he's experienced a drop in fastball velocity.
And this is a 34-year-old left-hander who's logged an awful lot of innings over the years, so I think that's a little bit, I hate to say father time, he's only 34 years old, but he has a lot of innings under his belt. Naturally, the progression is going to be you're slowly going to lose velocity. Had a knee injury, knee surgery last season. Still recovering from that and probably won't get that velocity back.
Off the plate inside. Remember, this is the goal of Encarnacion, to hit strikes. So he's taken some borderline pitches early in this game. In fact, walked in the first. Lays off that borderline pitch. That's a good sign.
And with Sabathia's fastball just around 90 miles per hour now, it's very important for him that when he does try to come in on that right-hander like he did first pitch, that's where he has to miss if he's going to miss the corner. He cannot miss on the plate. And what that does, it'll set up the changeup and the slider that we've been seeing backdoor on the outer part of the plate.
He got a good pitch to hit and fouls it off the catcher's mask.
Brian McCann felt the brunt of this one now. It's nice that the mask comes off to kind of soften that blow, but look at that face. Tell me he didn't feel that.
That'll rattle your jaw, that's for sure. 3-1 now to Encarnacion. Russell Martin struck out, caught looking at strike 3 to end the first. Bouncing ball, Headley near the bag at third. Sabathia retires the side in order in the top half of, in the bottom of the third. We'll go to the fourth. Blue Jays with a 2-1 lead.
RV, Motor Trend's 2015 Sport Utility of the Year.
Blue Jays have taken a 2-1 lead early in this ball game. Ezekiel Carrera with a 2-run single in the second. Mark Burley. First pitch swinging. Mark Teixeira singles into center field. Teixeira drove in the Yankees run with a ground out. Leadoff single here in the fourth. Yankees have 4 hits now. Blue Jays with 3. First pitch strike. Burley's done a good job of getting ahead of the Yankees early on tonight. Way outside. Blue Jays are playing McCann pull. Donaldson's the only defender on the third base side of second. It's a high fly ball to right. Carrera, the right fielder, calls for it. Pilar calls him off and makes the catch. Good communication by Pilar. He said, hey, I'm the center fielder. I'm the quarterback, and I'm going to take charge.
And that's what a good center fielder does. Kevin and Ezekiel just playing for the first time now, haven't played a lot together, and they have to develop that relationship out there. Tim Leeper talked about that too, just understanding how far each can go. But you see Ezekiel, he's carrying this ball. He's calling it all the way, but Kevin said no, no, and that's what a center fielder has to do. Take charge. Carrera gave way.
Carlos Beltran lined out to Pilar his first time up. Beltran and Burley have faced each other a lot. With that at bat in the second, that's the 58th at bat Beltran has had against Burley. A lot of information. Three and one now.
And it's a two-way street. There's a lot of information both ways. As a hitter, you know exactly what the pitcher has, what his pitches do, what he likes to do in certain situations. Burley also knows the swing of Carlos Beltran.
Taps this one foul down the third baseline.
You see, he went with that cutter right there in a 3-1 pitch. He's not going to give in. Didn't go totally off speed, just trying to get in on the hands, but he got the ground ball, just rolled it foul.
Another switch hitter on deck. That's the third baseman, Chase Headley. It's a fly ball into center. Pilar has a bead on it. Waits and makes the catch. 2 down. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Bouncing ball, one hopper to third. Donaldson retires Chase Headley. Good inning for Mark Burley. Sits down the Yankees. When we come back, Russell Martin will lead things off against C.C. Sabathia.
5 for your chance to win a Samsung Galaxy SX and a $200 gift card to the shopping channel. All you have to do, log on, watch, and you'll automatically be entered. Those are the contests I like to get involved in, Buck.
Should be a great opportunity to get some good tickets and have a Stanley Cup moment. So sign up and log on. Blue Jays have a 2-1 lead. It'll be Russell Martin, number 5 hitter in the lineup. Martin, Pilar, and Colabello against CC Sabathia. Kevin Pilar bunted to start the second inning, came around to score. So Martin says, you know what, that's not a bad idea.
Just turns into a bad idea when you get a fastball way in off the plate. Russell almost wore that one.
Hey, it's ball one.
It's like he's having a little chuckle with CC about that one.
You want to bunt? Bunt this one. Gonna bunt again, and that's a called strike. Well, they certainly got the infielders moving around. Both the corner infielders, Headley and Teixeira, were crashing when Martin squared the bunt, and you can see Carrera going over to first.
And he has a long ways to go. If Teixeira does come in to field the bunt, look where Perela's playing. It'd be a race to first base that I think Martin can win.
Breaking ball pulled foul.
There's that slider you're talking about that you don't want to come over top of and pull. Saw Bautista do it last inning. Russell right there pulling that ball foul. They want to try to keep their hands inside that ball and stay middle.
Russell said, wait a minute, there's too many bugs out here. It's the first time the roof has been open here at Rogers Center, and there are a lot of bugs flying around. Upstairs, a little extra from Sabathia on that fastball.
Elevating that fastball, see if he comes back down with the slider.
Fastball popped in the air down the right side. Teixeira will give it a look, but it's about 5 rows back out of play.
It's a good job by Martin fouling that pitch off right there. It's a good fastball by Sabathia, and that's what you do with 2 strikes. Stay short to the baseball. Russell's really been working on that 2-strike approach, carrying it into his whole at bat. He's been a hot Blue Jays hitter.
Blue Jays have done a good job of not chasing those pitches off the plate. Pilar will be next. He had a bunt single, came around to score on the Carrera 2-run single. 3-2 pitch. Off of Sabathia. Martin hustling toward the bag. He's going to make it. And Sabathia is waving off the training staff. It hit him in a good spot. He turned his backside to the plate. Joe Girardi jumped off the bench, but Sabathia waved him off. Looked like he hit him right in the back pocket.
An absolute bullet off the bat of Russell Martin, and it probably got CC in a good spot. Beefy spot of the backside. He's still going to feel that, and probably going to feel it more tomorrow.
So leadoff single for Russell Martin. Kevin Pilar. Pilar with a long look down to third base. Pilar can play hit and run with Martin. Fly ball into center. Ellsbury over in the alley. The center fielder is there. Martin's tagging, and there's the throw in. He'll stop. Teixeira gave him a heads up. Well, Sabathia with 1 out here in the 4th. These 2 pitchers tonight have been among the best as far as innings per season. Barry Zito first with Oakland and then the Giants. Then Roy Halladay, of course, great career, averaged 193 and 2/3. CC Sabathia over 200 in an average season. And how about Mark Burley? 216 and 2/3. That's an average innings pitched season for Mark Burley. That is since 2001, and Sabathia balked. There was some indecision between McCann and Sabathia's taken the blame. He said, "That's on me." So now they have to go through the series of signs. The Yankees took advantage of a balk in last night's game against Marco Estrada. Watch Sabathia.
You see the signs being given by McCann. They nod in agreement, and then it's like, oh, no, let's change that up. And that's what happens. The pitcher starts going to the set position. It's too late. He's already nudged. When you're getting your sign from the catcher, as a pitcher, when you make that first move, you have to come up to the set position unless you step back off the rubber. CC just flinched, and Toby Basner caught him.
Chris Colabello had a double. There's a liner. That's a base hit. Martin had to make sure it was down. He's getting a wave around third, and he'll score without a throw. Good job by Martin. Good job by Luis Rivera, the third base coach. Colabello with another RBI, his second of the season. But Rivera has really worked hard on getting to know this slow playing surface and how he can score runners from second.
Outstanding job by Luis Rivera, and he's playing off that arm of Chris Young out in left field as well. But as soon as this ball's hit, Russell has to freeze because the shortstop could make that play. But look at Louis. He knows that ball is going to slow down in the left center gap before it's picked up by the outfielder. He's waving him home all the way. Russell freezes. Okay, now I can go. He's waving him right now.
I tell you what, a third base coach is only as good as his player's effort. And Russell Martin busted it as soon as that ball cleared the shortstop. He thought about scoring, and it was validated by Rivera.
You have to always think of the extra 90 feet, not just getting to the next base, but 90 more feet. And with that mindset, that gives Luis Rivera the opportunity to go ahead and wave Russell home there. If you get a guy that's Cadillacing it into third base, you can't score on that play. Nice job all around.
It is 3-1 Blue Jays. Goins rolls it towards second. Colabello will go to second as Goins is thrown out. 4-3 on the putout. Colabello now in scoring position at second. Ezekiel Carrera had a big two-strike base hit in the second inning. He drove in the first two Blue Jay runs. Now he bats with another runner in scoring position. Hacking at that first pitch.
Well, as a left-handed batter, if you get that first pitch fastball, you want to try to jump on that. You don't want to get deep in the count against Sabathia and then potentially get a couple of sliders.
There's a fly ball to right, but not that deep. Beltran over toward the line makes the catch, but the Blue Jays add a run. We'll head to the fifth. It's 3-1 Jays. Now it's time for Sports Blue Jays Central Update. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zong.
Live or on demand in True HD. Real-time highlights, live look-ins, pitch tracking widget, and much more. MLB.TV Premium offers a free At That 15 subscription as well. Watch baseball at home, at the office, or on the go. Season-long subscription packages are available. Visit BlueJays.com for more details. They're also great in the broadcast booth or down in the camera bay.
Keeps everybody up to date, that's for sure, Barry. Everything going on, and you have a chance to see what everybody else is doing. This is Stephen Drew. Nice play by Encarnacion. Line drive out to first. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Boy, the Mets have been terrific at Citi Field in New York. They are 12-3 at home going into this game against the Orioles in interleague action. Burley jumps ahead of Jose Carrera. He doubled in the third inning to start that inning. Well, he's been wearing it out in his rehab assignment down in the minor leagues. We mentioned he had a concussion in spring training. Been on the disabled list. This is his first game coming off the DL. Mark Burley in pretty good groove tonight. He allowed a first inning run. Mark Teixeira had a ground out RBI. Full count, 1 out.
This is just a different pitcher than we've seen in the last two Mark Burley starts. Given up a ton of hits and been all around the middle of the plate. Tonight you're seeing him on the edges much more.
Bouncing ball up the middle, and Goins can't make a play. Carrera is 2 for 2.
Save during the Lawn and Garden Expert Sale. Only at Home Hardware and Home Hardware Building Center. Homeowners helping homeowners with expert advice.
One out, man at first. Back to the top of the order. Jacoby Ellsbury is 0 for 2 so far. Just in case.
If they're running, it's probably going to be first move. They'll try to sneak one on Burley. Not easy to do, but he will keep them honest by just going over there.
He is a tough guy to run on. There's no question about that. We mentioned he has allowed just 59 steals in his entire career. This is his 16th season. Ellsbury reaches for it. You're seeing a lot of off-balance swings tonight from Burley, which means he's working these hitters in and out and front to back.
Very different swings from Ellsbury here tonight than we've seen the previous two nights. He's been locked in on everything. But that's exactly what Burley will do. Move it in and out, change speeds. And when you see those defensive swings, you know the pitcher is at advantage right now.
There's a shallow fly. Pilar broke back. He's got a long run. He's not going to get there. And Perella does a heck of a job of moving into second. Pilar's first move was back. He saw the big swing from Ellsbury and thought it was hit hard. When he recognized it was a blooper, he turned and hustled in, but it was too late.
There's Kevin Pilar in center field. You'll see the big swing from Ellsbury, and as a center fielder, your first move is back. He went back a couple of steps trying to retreat, but he just cannot make it there in time. Then he tries to make the quick throw, but good base running right there by Perella. Just assuming that Pilar may not get to that ball, he's able to scoot in rather than be forced out at second base.
That base hit extends Ellsbury's hit streak to 9 straight. Chris Young singled into first. He popped out into third. Blue Jays at double play depth. Two and 0. He wouldn't chase. Now 3 and 0. Rodriguez is on deck. Had the green light. Even with Alex Rodriguez on deck, Joe Girardi turned Young loose. Chris Young has hit .440 against lefty pitching so far. Now it's 3 and 2. Good comeback by Burley.
Little cutter right there, just running in on the hands of Young. He's got some pop too, 6 home runs early in this season, so he is a threat. But that's how you earn the green light. When you're swinging a hot bat, the manager will let you wail away.
3-2, 1 out. Strike 3 call all the way back from 3 and 0. And Young takes strike 3. That inside fastball that's always been a good pitch for Burley for strikeouts, and a big strikeout here.
That's the pitch that he has to have. It looks like a little changeup may have cut in on him. That's not exactly where he wanted that change, but it worked very well. See the frustration of Young as he walked back to the dugout.
You're right, that was a changeup. Rodriguez now with 2 outs. William Hendricks starting to loosen up for the Blue Jays. 3 and 0. Rodriguez is tied with Willie Mays for 4th on the all-time home run list. He has 660 home runs. Today is Willie Mays' 84th birthday. Ball 4. So that'll load the bases. That's the first walk issued by Burley. And that'll bring Mark Teixeira to the plate. Teixeira has driven in the Yankees run tonight with a ground out. Mark Teixeira has 8 career grand slams. On the ground. Goins at short, takes his time, and Burley pitches out of it. The Yankees leave the bases loaded. Burley has left 6 Yankees on base so far. Blue Jays lead it 3-1. game over 500, one game behind the New York Yankees. The Rays have played very well on the road so far this season. They are 7-5 as they play the Red Sox in Boston. This is Devin Travis, the leadoff man. Travis is 0 for 2 so far tonight. He's hitting 178, batting in the leadoff spot. Filling in for the injured Jose Reyes. For comparison's sake, Travis has hit 474 batting second and 371 batting ninth. So he's a little bit out of his comfort level here in the leadoff spot. The ball is driven to center field. Ellsbury got a good break on it and runs it down before it hits safely. Good play by Ellsbury in center.
The championship-winning Honda CRF 450R for those who dare to ride red.
Beautiful night here at Rogers Center, and Blue Jays, so far so good. They have a 3-1 lead over CC Sabathia and the Yanks. Josh Donaldson takes a tough strike.
And it's a lot to ask Devin Travis in that leadoff spot. He was in Double-A last year, making a big jump, but trying to fill the shoes of Jose Reyes.
Well, Chew, he's gotten off to such a great start, and all of a sudden he's the focal point, top of the order. You know this, Joe, sometimes players think differently when they hit in different spots in the lineup. But Travis has had a great start to his young career.
I think he was just being himself down at the bottom of that order, probably getting a lot of fastballs early in the season as well, but now he's trying to be that leadoff hitter. Seeing a lot more off-speed pitches too because he's had such a good month.
It's all about adjustments, and he is open for the adjustments, that's for sure. Boy, they are working over Donaldson in that down and in area. Toby Basner responding to some heckling from the Blue Jays dugout. You heard him say it's not down. So now Donaldson says, let me swat these flies. Another pitch in that same area. Donaldson called out on strikes. CC Sabathia signed a long contract with the Yankees. He's in his 7th season in New York, and you can see when it started out, he got off to a great start, 74-29. But things have turned around for him lately.
Well, they have, and you know what? Number one thing is he's getting older, and he's logged an awful lot of innings. We've talked about that. Been to the postseason, had over 100 innings in the postseason alone, I believe, and then he had that knee injury last season.
When you look at the innings logged by these two pitchers, they are first and third in innings pitched, Burley and Sabathia, when you count the postseason innings as well. 0-2 to Bautista. Mark Burley has thrown 3,143 in a third coming into this game. CC Sabathia 2,960. That's a lot of wear and tear. Bouncing ball taken by Headley on the backhand. Bautista's retired. The Blue Jays are down in order in the bottom of the 5th. We head to the 6th, and here comes the Home Hardware Cleanup Crew, brought to you by Natura, Home Hardware's exclusive line of safe, environmentally friendly cleaning products.
Cup playoffs. Go to sportsnet.ca/schedule for matchup, channel listings, and start times. Buck?
Thank you, Barry. Great way to find out all about the Stanley Cup playoffs and where your teams are playing. This is a new pitcher for the Blue Jays. It's Roberto Osuna on to work the 6th here in relief of Mark Burley.
Osuna working in his 11th game, 1.38 ERA. He's been very good. The youngster, the 20-year-old, performing much more like a veteran, very mature. Osuna pitched in the Mexican League and professionally, and he's very advanced for his age.
He hasn't pitched since the 30th of April, last Thursday in Cleveland. And first pitch swinging as Brian McCann lifts a lazy fly ball to right. 1 pitch, 1 out for Osuna. Well, Mark Burley came into this ballgame with a 1-14 record against the New York Yankees, and he leaves after 77 pitches in line for the win.
That's right, and he cannot lose, and that's the big thing. But he was much better tonight than his last 2 starts. We talked about in the open, Burley was much better with his pitches, staying away from the middle of the plate tonight. Good movement.
This is Carlos Beltran batting left-handed for the first time. Changeup upstairs. Osuna pitched twice against the Yankees in the season opening series. He worked a total of 2 innings in 2 appearances, gave up just 1 hit. Little jam shot, and that's going to sneak under the glove of Devin Travis as Beltran's aboard with a 1-out base hit. Sounded like it broke his bat.
Well, Osuna is a power arm. He'll be up in the mid-90s with that slider and changeup. Very good combination. Very polished for a 20-year-old.
As you mentioned, he signed as a 16-year-old professionally and pitched in Mexico. Basically a AAA league. He says Chase Headley, he too, like Beltran, a switch hitter. He grounded out twice against Burley. Bounced way in front of the plate. We mentioned that Osuna hasn't pitched since last Thursday. He threw an inning and 2/3 against Cleveland, a total of 30 pitches in that outing. That was the most he has thrown this season, 30 pitches in a game.
Nice job again by Russell Martin, corralling that ball in the dirt, keeping that runner at first base.
Osuna's got plenty of fastball, and his easy delivery can really create problems for hitters. That ball can jump on you.
I think it's very deceptive for hitters, and when you say jump on it, that's exactly it. It looks like just a regular fastball. That ball approaches the hitting zone. It's got that extra gear, and it's just on you a little sooner than it appears. Very live arm.
He mentioned Burley, 6 hits over 5 innings, but what he did do tonight, he kept the ball in the ballpark. He'd given up 6 home runs in his first 5 starts compared to last year. He allowed only 2 home runs through his first 12 starts. That led to those 10 wins.
This was a much more classic Burley appearance tonight. We saw him use that cutter in on the right-handers. We saw the changeup against the left-handers. We saw a lot of changeups tonight, and that might be the new thing for Burley, but those are the types of pitches we've seen out of Mark when he's had success, especially leading up to the All-Star game.
Changeup, kind of showing steps on the bag, and they've got Beltran hung up between first and second. Goins will throw to Travis, and they get the double play to end the inning. Encarnacion took the hot shot, stepped on first, and started the rundown. Osuna has a good first inning.
big comfy green chairs are guests from TD. Meanwhile, over in the Jays Care Community Clubhouse are folks from Extra Bases. Guys, an update on Jose Reyes. I spoke to him today. He did some running out in the field today. He's trying to keep his legs in good shape. He says the rib does feel better. He'll have an MRI tomorrow. He's crossing his fingers to hope that the healing has begun. He says right now the biggest thing for him is just boredom. He says it's very tough sitting around, finishing his treatment, and then watching his team play and not being able to do anything about it.
Absolutely. That's the worst thing for a baseball player, is to sit around, know that you're really kind of a fifth wheel. Can't do anything to help your team. Ball and a strike to the cleanup man, Edwin Encarnacion. The Blue Jays have a 3-1 lead. And generally, that's not enough to win a ball game for the Blue Jays. There's a drive to center, but Ellsbury's got plenty of room. One out. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. For Lynn, that's his 5th home run of the season. He's driven in 15 on the year, batting .322 after that home run. Russell Martin got a base hit, and it literally hit CC Sabathia on the mound.
That fastball inside again by Sabathia, and that's what he has to do with it. He's been successful in there, and then he'll probably try to get him out away.
There's a drive to left field, high and gone. Russell Martin, he's on fire. Number 7 for Martin.
Russell Martin did not miss this pitch. Just an outstanding swing, and that's what happens when you're a hot hitter. Looking in a certain area, Russell got it, and he is not making mistakes when he gets his pitches right now.
Boy, he is swinging it. He has been hitting the ball consistently hard, as that's another extra base hit for Russell Martin.
Watch the sign by the catcher, Brian McCann. The pinky finger means fastball away. Watch the pinky finger. There it is now. He wants this away. Look where McCann sets up. He wants it out there. Watch where the pitch ends up. Catcher moves his glove.
Pillar drops one in front of the left fielder, Chris Young. So Kevin Pillar, his 2nd hit of the night. For Martin, we mentioned, as you look at that last pitch to Martin, he squares it up. He has homered in 4 straight starts. Remember, he hit a long home run in Cleveland on Sunday, and then had a home run in last night's game in the 9th inning. And Larry Rothschild, the pitching coach, and the manager Joe Girardi trying to come up with something to slow down the Blue Jays offensively. Colabella with another base hit. Pillar's going to go to third. That ball deflected off of Drew's glove, and Kevin Pillar goes first to third. Chris Colabella, a 3-hit night.
Well, how about the addition of this bat in the Blue Jays lineup? Colabella was tearing it up in AAA as well, but he is squaring the baseball up tonight. Drew could not make that play, just off the edge of his glove, and we know the aggressive base runner Kevin Pillar, he easily cruises into third base.
That ties a career high in hits for Colabello. Third time he's had 3 hits in a ball game. You get called up, you make a quick impression.
It's an opportunity, and Chris is taking advantage of it right now. He's had his struggles out in left field, but he's certainly making up for it with the bat.
Ryan Goins 0 for 2 so far. The safety squeeze was on, and Goins called for a strike. Pilar just goes with the third baseman. When Goins squared the bunt, Pilar can go as far as Chase Headley at third.
And that's why Ryan Goins, if he's going to bunt this baseball, he needs to get on top of the plate, get some plate coverage, and take this bunt with him towards first. Make either Sabathia or Teixeira coming in from first fielding.
Shown bunt again. That time Headley didn't break.
Yankees switched it up that time. Headley was coming the first time. This time Teixeira is coming in off that first base bag, trying to mix it up against Goins, because he is going to have to find the right spot to get Pilar home to bunt this baseball.
Ball and a strike, 1 out. A run in on the home run.
See Headley now. He's even with Pilar at third base, but we'll see how he reacts.
Breaking ball, 2-1. Esmiel Rogers, the former Blue Jay, loosening up in the Yankee bullpen. Blue Jays have 4 runs on 8 hits, threatening to add to that lead. Two and 2 now to Goins.
Tough matchup for Goins against the left-hander. CC very tough on left-handed batters, and Ryan not success against left-handed pitchers, but he's got to find a way to put this ball in play right here. Choke it up a little bit, spread out the stance, do whatever you can, shorten up your swing, play a little pepper. Even a weakly hit ball into play could score a run here with Pilar on third.
He hangs tough against the breaking ball. That 4th run is huge for the Blue Jays. When they score 4 runs or more, which they've done 16 times, their winning record much better. They are 12-4 when they score 4 or more runs. Popped up. Pilar at third. Tags, but he can't advance.
Save during the Lawn and Garden Expert Sale, only at Home Hardware and Home Hardware Building Center. Homeowners helping homeowners with expert advice.
This might be a situation normally where John Gibbons would use Danny Valencia to hit. At least you might get Sabathia out of the game, but Valencia's dealing with a sprained ankle and he is iffy. Carrera had a 2-run single in the second off of Sabathia. There goes Colabello, pitches inside. There's no coverage at second. Colabello moves himself into scoring position. It is a stolen base for Colabello. That's his first big league steal.
And it was an easy one.
Standing up. Breaking ball ends the inning as Carrera strikes out. But Russell Martin is on fire. He has homered in 4 straight starts. This home run comes with 1 out in the 6th. Home run number 7 for the Blue Jays catcher.
Country Day presented by TD. Sunday, May 24th, the Blue Jays and the Mariners at 107, and the first 20,000 fans will receive a Blue Jays trucker hat. Special appearances from Chad Brownlee and Gord Bradford. Go to BlueJays.com for tickets. A lot of country music fans on the Blue Jays, Buck, and I'm sure they'll enjoy the afternoon.
You bet they will. And it's always a popular promotion here at Rogers Center. Anytime you have that country theme, a lot of people come and enjoy that. Roberto Osuna in his second inning of work. Ball and a strike to Stephen Drew. We mentioned Osuna had not pitched since last Thursday, so he's got a lot of rest as he threw 30 pitches in an inning and 2/3. He's underneath that changeup and has fallen behind Stephen Drew.
It can be tough going a long time without pitching, just not being on that game mound facing big league hitters.
And he loses Stephen Drew here to start the 7th. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. He's got an update. Well, the Boston Red Sox, they've got a lot of concern with their pitching as well. They shored up the offense, but their pitching has been very shaky. This is Jose Pirela. He is just active off the disabled list. He has gotten 2 hits tonight. The Yankees infield has been really slumping offensively. They really haven't done much offensively, so they're anxious to get Carrera back into the regular rotation.
Well, they're getting mixed results from Didi Gregorius. Of course, he's trying to fill the shoes of Derek Jeter at shortstop. It's an awful lot to ask.
1-2 to the number 9 hitter, Aaron Luke, loosening up. Got Jacoby Ellsbury on deck. Ellsbury had a bloop single his last time up. Bouncing ball. Travis at second. Shovels to go and comes across the bag and doubles him up. Bang, bang call at first. Dana DeMuth, the veteran umpire, rings up the double play. Good teamwork as Travis had to come and get this chopper.
Oh, what a nice job by coming to get it, too. One step in. Ryan Goins coming flying across that bag with that good, strong arm. He's got that good, strong arm from the left side of the infield. Clearly gets him by half a step.
Second double play turned by the Blue Jays tonight. This is the first time they've gone around the bag at second. So that leadoff walk is erased. And here is Ellsbury. His single his last time up extends his hit streak to 9 straight. Boy, he's got good coverage of that outside part of the plate. And Burley handling very effectively, working him inside.
Very different approach now against Roberto Osuna. That fastball up around 95 miles per hour compared to what he had against Burley for a few at bats.
Took a shot inside and missed. That's one thing that has changed over the last 15 to 20 years. Left-handed hitters have owned the outer 3/4 of the plate. There was a time when most lefties were dead pull hitters.
Coming inside again.
Got in there. The reason that has changed in my mind, you probably go back to the mid-'80s when the split finger pitch started to come into prominence, and then pitchers started throwing a lot of backdoor breaking balls, so lefties really became aggressive over the outer part of the plate.
working away, and you can see how effective you can be coming inside. Of course, Osuna has the fastball to do it. Looks like he's coming in there again.
This is going to reach the seats out of play. Another thing that has impacted the approach of left-handed hitters is the implementation of the armor, the body armor, that elbow pad. You're not so hesitant to dive out over that plate and cover that outside pitch, and the implementation of the umpire warning. Pitching inside has been a lost art.
Get one warning from one side, now all of a sudden hitters are feeling pretty good about themselves, knowing they can dive out over.
Change up, he reaches for it. To Hopper to Travis. Another good inning for Osuna. 2 strong innings for the young right-hander. We'll go to the bottom of the 7th. The Blue Jays lead it 4-1.
A trip for 2 to New York City for you and a guest to watch the Blue Jays take on the New York Yankees. Prize includes round-trip accommodations, spending money, and a VIP ballpark tour. Contest closes May 17th. Enter today at BlueJays.com. That would be a terrific trip, Buck. Yankee Stadium, great place to watch a ball game.
I think another big aspect of that trip, Barry, is the fact you should interview them on the field. I think that'd be a real good capper for that trip. CC Sabathia set to work the bottom of the 7th. He gets hit again. This time it goes to the shortstop. Devin Travis is thrown out. Sabathia kicked at that ball. Not sure where it hit him. It looked like it hit him again.
It's hard for a pitcher not to react to a ball hit back at him. Look what he does here. Tries to give it a little foot wedge. It looked like he missed it. Steven Drew's there to back him up.
Devin Travis is 0 for 4. Josh Donaldson will step in. He's 0 for 3 so far against Sabathia. Sabathia has thrown 97 pitches, and he's got the same stuff now that he had in the first inning.
CC's doing what he's done his whole career, and this is what he's doing. He's trying to keep his team in the ball game here. He stayed out there. He continues to work in the righties with the fastball, mixing in his sliders, but 4-1 ball game. His team has just not been able to get to Blue Jays pitching. He's got just enough on that fastball to keep hitters honest, especially when he comes inside or elevates it. And that slider's been a big pitch for him, both sides of the plate.
Little sink on that fastball right at the bottom of the zone. It's 1-2 to Donaldson. Breaking ball, base hit through the 5-6 hole into left field. Donaldson's aboard with his first hit of the night. Joe Girardi has popped out of the Yankees dugout. He's already made the call to the bullpen. So Donaldson's single with one out here in the 7th will end the night for CC Sabathia. He will leave trailing 4-1 in this ball game. He pitches 6 1/3 here tonight at Rogers Center. Esmil Rogers coming on. Joey bats Bautista's side, and that's the first batter Esmil Rogers will face here in the bottom of the 7th. Rogers, the former Blue Jay, went to the Yankees last year on the waiver claim, July 31st.
He's pitched in 8 games, 2.6 ERA, only 5 walks, 17 strikeouts in his 17 1/3 innings of work. Nice job by Rogers thus far. He pitched in Boston on Sunday, giving up a couple hits and an earned run in that Yankees win.
Picked up his first win on Friday in relief against the Red Sox. Donaldson at first, Bautista 0 for 2 with a walk. The inside off the plate. Bautista 0 for 3 against his former teammate, Esmil Rogers. 1 out. Pulled foul outside of third.
Rogers has started as well, so he throws a lot of pitches. He'll be up around 94 with that fastball, curveball, slider, cutter, changeup. He was with the Blue Jays. He was always tinkering with different pitches, working on a split finger as well.
Esmil's now 29 years old. He started his big league career in Colorado in 2009. Appeared in just 1 game for the Rockies that season. Made 8 starts in 2010. In 2012, he went from Colorado to Cleveland, and the Blue Jays picked him up in exchange for Michael Vilas and Yan Gomes. Bautista with the emergency swing. That ball was right in on the letters.
His former teammate and buddy here came up and in with this pitch. Jose couldn't hold up. A lot of times when you commit with that swing up there, you can't hold up. And of course, you know, Jose's favoring that right shoulder a little bit.
Bouncing ball towards short. Drew has but 1 play, and that's the first. Bautista's retired. Donaldson moves to second. All the Yankees starting to grow a mustache. They swept the Tampa Bay Rays, and Brett Gardner had not shaved on the start of that series, so they all felt like it was a good thing to do, to build a little camaraderie, a little team spirit. Encarnacion lines out to the third baseman. Hit it right on the button, but right to Headley. We'll go to the 8th. The Blue Jays have a 4-1 lead.
They got on a big run, and a lot of players have done that. And we're thinking Buck Martinez, Pat Tabler would probably really work well in that mustache craze if you look at their looks back from the day. Unfortunately, Joe Siddall did not have a mustache, but look what he would look like if we had one on him. That is a fine group of stashes, gentlemen, I must say, especially yours, Joe.
Good artwork, Barry.
Little Raleigh fingers happening there.
It looked like Raleigh fingers for sure. Brett Gardner got it started. They swept Tampa Bay, and they all decided to keep their mustaches. Joe Girardi said, I'll start a mustache as soon as you guys win 10 straight.
Joe's not on board, huh?
Not yet. This is Osuna working in his third inning of work. Chris Young singled in his first at bat. He's 1 for 3. He scored the only Yankee run. That was way back in the first. Pretty good pitch. Didn't get the call. Top of the zone.
High strike. Don't see that called as much.
Breaking ball. There's Travis. Positioned perfectly. 1 out. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership. Open air baseball. Osuna gets the first man out here in the 8th. He did a good job. Now it's over to Aaron Luke, the lefty. Roberto Osuna, with his longest outing in the big leagues, goes 2 1/3. He lost a hit and a walk and nothing more. Talking to Marco Estrada about that changeup, how he left a few changeups up. So now it's Aaron Loup into the game to pitch to Alex Rodriguez, and it's a curious move, but there are numbers that back it up.
That's right. Alex Rodriguez's splits are not as good against left-handed batters. Got Mark Teixeira on deck, who as well is not as good against lefties.
Rodriguez against Loup, just 2 at-bats. He is 1 for 2. Pops this one back out of play.
Loup has pitched in 11 games this season, a 4.91 ERA, which does not look good, but just a walk and 9 strikeouts in his 11 innings of work. He's allowed 5 hits, 2 of those for extra bases over his last inning and 2/3, though.
Rodriguez strikes out. Loup gets his first man, to the delight of the Blue Jays fans.
Good fastball by Aaron Loup. He's got that crossfire delivery, which, believe it or not, he's tough on lefties, but he's also can be tough on righties. Tough to pick up that baseball. He'll be around 93 with that fastball. He's got a slider and a changeup to go with it. That ball just beat Alex.
Teixeira takes one inside. You saw the fans behind the behind the Yankees dugout with the yellow asterisk sign. Of course, that's in reference to Rodriguez being suspended for his PED use. They want to put an asterisk by his career numbers. One and one, 2 outs. He went around.
And this is why a lot of people will wonder why Roberto Osuna out of the ball game right now. He's pitching great. Leave him in. Don't go to the bullpen. That's what I'm sure a lot of fans are thinking. But this is what John Gibbons has. He's armed with a lot of the numbers that we have. He knows the advantages that he can take against some of these hitters.
Oh, he's got a lot more numbers than we have.
We can ever imagine. But you're playing the percentages.
You see all those binders behind the coaches there? They got all kinds of numbers.
Full of information.
Teixeira protects the outside corner.
But it worked against A-Rod, and then now you turn around the switch hitter. Teixeira hitting 148 against left-handers coming into tonight.
Plus, Osuna did his job. He gave you 2 1/3. Allowed 1 hit, 1 walk. They were both erased by double plays. You get him out on a real positive note. He threw 27 pitches, just 3 pitches shy of his career high, so everything works in Gibbons' favor. Here Teixeira walks. So now, after getting the right-hander and the switch hitter, he gets a left-handed bat in McCann.
And it's so important too. You've got to remember Osuna. He still is this 20-year-old kid, so you get him out of there feeling pretty confident right now, and he'll be feeling great about himself and going into his next outing, and that's very important at his tender young age here in the major leagues.
And you saw John Gibbons talking with his pitching coach Pete Walker, and Walker's looking at his matchup guide, and they will monitor where they are with their bullpen in the Yankees lineup. You see DeMarlo Hale, the bench coach in the year of John Gibbons. That's an ongoing process in the major leagues nowadays. Manager will think of something running by the bench coach. He'll validate it or come up with an option.
Buck, you've been in that dugout as a manager. How fast is that game going on right now on the field for you?
100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to communicate with your coaches. Walker's looking at his matchup sheet. They still shift against McCann, even against a left-handed pitcher. McCann has adjusted very well to these shifts, and we're seeing him hit a lot more balls to the opposite field.
We started to see that towards the end of last season. We saw McCann starting to go to left field against the Blue Jays with this shift on, but the Blue Jays have not adjusted. You can see this season what McCann is doing. He's using the whole field. Very good splits all the way across the field.
Now, Joe Girardi is upset by these fans out in left center, and the fans are holding up their phones with the lights on, and Joe says, wait a minute now. So the ushers, I'm sure, will get in to put those down. It can be a distraction, of course, in that background out there in left. Bounced up the middle. Goins takes it and throws out McCann. So Luke gets out of the inning. The Yankees down 4-1 as the Blue Jays are set to bat in the bottom of the 8th. Now it's time for a Blue Jays Central update. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zahn. CRV, Motor Trend's 2015 Sport Utility of the Year.
Well, Russell Martin got this mistake from CC Sabathia. Brian McCann wanted this ball away. It sails over the inner half of the plate, and he has been one hot hitter for the Blue Jays, hitting this into the left field seats, put the Blue Jays up 4-1 in the 6th inning. That's where we remain, and Russell Martin just continues to swing a hot bat for his club.
Russell Martin has homered in 4 straight starts. And when he didn't start, he came off the bench and got a pinch hit RBI single. 7 homers for Martin now. He's driven in 18. Martin's got his average up to 277. This has been a tough part of the lineup for the Blue Jays tonight. Martin has 2 hits, Pilar has 2 hits, and Colabello has 3. They've got 7 of the 9 hits.
5, 6, 7 in the lineup, and what that does is it really lengthens the lineup out for John Gibbons.
Brooks Jacoby was talking about that before batting practice tonight, about he's not worried about Martin. Wants to keep Pilar where he's at. Colabello, kind of an unknown entity. He said, I know that Donaldson, Bautista, and Encarnacion, they're going to hit. We got to keep these other guys swinging the bats hot.
And I think Martin and Pilar are both in very good spots, both swinging the bats well.
That is the left-hander Chasen Shreve. One of 3 lefties the Yankees have in their bullpen. Good ball game for the Blue Jays. Mark Burley, a strong 5 innings of work. Russell Martin just reached out and poked it in the right. He has 3 hits.
He's on fire. Just an outstanding piece of hitting again. You know, you see him go take that fastball from Sabathia earlier into the left field seats. This pitch is out over the plate from Esmil Rogers, not trying to do too much. There's that 2-strike approach we're talking about. Not trying to do too much, just getting the foot down, staying short, letting that ball travel deep in his stance. He stays behind the baseball so well, allowing him to line that the other way.
Boy, that was a good opportunity to see how those hands roll over on contact, and he drives it in direct. Martin is 3 for 4. Pilar is 2 for 3. On the ground, this could be 2. Drew to second, back to first, double play, 2 down. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Kobe Lewis shutting out the Astros on 3 hits. Sam Didino, he has been hammered. 4 innings, 6 runs on 6 hits. He's walked 3, and that's a big concern for the Astros. Colin McHugh and Dallas Keuchel, 2 of their starters, have pitched well, but the rest of the starting staff has been hit hard. That's going to catch up to him eventually.
Yeah, well, you can't not keep going back to the bullpen, too. We've talked about that even with the Yankees here. As good as their bullpen has been early in this season, they've pitched an awful lot. Starters, not a whole lot of quality starts, and if you keep doing that throughout the course of the season, that's going to take its toll on the guys down the pen.
Chris Colabello has tied his career high with 3 hits tonight. He's never had a 4-hit game. 3rd time in his big league career he's collected 3 hits in a game. Brett Cecil loosening up, getting ready for the top of the 9th. For the Yankees, it's Beltran, Headley, and Stephen Drew. Six, 7, and 8 in the Yankees batting order. Colabello was the International League Player of the Month while playing at AAA Buffalo. So the Blue Jays needed an extra player, and they went to the hottest player in the International League. And he's continued to swing the bat well early on here with the Blue Jays.
And it helps that Chris has some big league experience. He had a tremendous month for the Minnesota Twins last year. So this is a guy that can hit.
Got a little jumpy on that 0-2 pitch, trying to talk his way back down to a smooth approach.
See a hitter touch their front hip, tap it a little bit, make sure to stay back. Again with that 2-strike approach. Like Brian McCann wants to elevate a fastball here. You see that hand pointing up. One slider away.
Oh, he covered it well. Rogers threw it in a good spot, and Colabello spoiled a good pitch.
It's where you want to be as a pitcher. If you're throwing a slider in that situation, you still want it to be enticing to the hitter. Good rotation on that pitch from Rogers, down and away, put it right where McCann wanted it, but a good piece of hitting by Colabello, and this is the veteran hitter that Colabello is.
There's his 4th hit. First time in his big league career, Colabello has a 4-hit game.
Brian McCann trying to change it up with a curveball that time. I talked about the number of pitches that Esmil throws. He used to be a starter. But that curveball hung over the middle of the plate. Colabello is all over it.
So Joe Girardi is out of the Yankee dugout. Ryan Goins is a lefty bat. He's scheduled to hit. Jason Shreve comes in from the Yankee pen.
Sign up at nextissue.ca/baseball and get an extended 60-day free trial. Buck?
Thank you very much, Barry. Great opportunity to check out some interesting stories with Next Issue. Lefty into the ball game. Jason Shreve has pitched in 7 games so far this season.
2.7 ERA, and one thing he's done is he's kept opponents' batting averages down to 176. Recalled from AAA on April 21st. This is his second stint with the Yankees. Made his major league debut last year with the Braves.
Shreve pitching for the first time at Rogers Center. This is Ryan Goins. He's 0 for 3. Went 0 for 3 against CC Sabathia. He did not face Rogers.
Shreve's fastball be around 92. He's got a slider and a split to go with it. Probably see those sliders against the left-handed hitting Goins.
2 outs. Colabello at first. Goins drives his to the alley. That's going to go over the head of Beltran all the way to the wall. Colabello's around third. He's going to score. Goins is headed for third with his second triple of the season. Big insurance run here in the 8th.
Very good piece of hitting by Ryan Goins, the lefty against the lefty Shreve. He did come back with the slider, and Ryan Goins was all over it. He gets that foot down. Good, strong position there. He gets his body in a good spot and drives this ball into the gap. Carlos Beltran is just not the same right fielder. He may not have had a shot anyway. That ball's hit pretty well. But once it gets to the wall, that's going to enable Goins to go for 3.
Ezekiel Carrera drove in 2 runs in the second. Chris Colabello with a career night, his first 4-hit night of his big league career. Waves at that outside pitch.
Talked to Colabello today about his night last night facing Michael Pineda. He had never faced him before, and I just asked him how difficult it was, and he said just everything's moving. One time he struck out. He's trying to lay off that high fastball, but this is a veteran hitter. He loves to talk hitting, loves to talk about how pitchers are trying to work him, and boy, he's had the upper hand tonight.
Check swing. Ed Hickok's down at third, said he didn't go around. Another breaking ball in the dirt. Devin Travis, if Carrera can reach base. Travis is 0 for 4 so far tonight. Carrera strikes out. The Blue Jays add a run in the bottom of the 8th. We'll go to the 9th. It's a 5-1 Blue Jays lead. Blue Jays with a chance to win the series. Cecil coming on. Brett Cecil, the closer. This is not a save. It is Sportsnet Central with Ken Reed and Ivanka Osmak. Canadians Lightning 1-1 in the 3rd. Tampa Bay leads that series 2-0. And on now on Sportsnet. Rangers and Capitals. Good series going on there. 2-1 Washington lead. Brett Cecil into the game in the 9th.
Pitching in his 12th game. 8 innings. He's walked a couple, struck out 8.
Carlos Beltran 1 for 3.
Cecil coming in, no longer a save situation, but the fastball will be around 92. Curveball, cutter, changeup.
Justin Smoke defensively at first for Encarnacion. Bouncing ball. Tough hop. Donaldson in plenty of time. 1 down. Now for a preview of what's coming up next on Sportsnet Central. Here's Ken Reed and Ivanka Osmak. Those soft footballs have created so much controversy. 1 out. This is Chase Headley. Chase jumps ahead with a strike. Mark Burley in line for his 2nd win against the New York Yankees. It's been a long time since Burley has beaten the Yankees. His only win came against New York April 10th, 2004. He has beaten 27 other teams since he last beat the Yankees. He pitched well tonight.
He sure did. Mark Burley did what he needed to do for his club. He gave them 5 good innings, had the lead, and then handed it over to the bullpen that has done an admirable job. Osuna Loop, and now Cecil.
One hop, backhanded stab by Goins, skips it across in time. Another fine defensive play by the Blue Jays shortstop. That'll bring a smile to your face.
That'll bring a smile to everyone's face in that dugout, on that field. A lot of fun to play good defense, and Ryan Goins has flashed the leather here in this Yankees series. That ball's into left field, backhands it, stops, he plants, finds out where he is, but he also knows his runner Headley. He uses that turf for that one-hop throw, gives Smoke a nice hop at first base. Nice job just snaring that, setting his feet, makes that strong throw. And everybody's got a smile after that one.
Stephen Drew with a 1-0 count. The Yankees in danger of having their consecutive series streak ended tonight at 5. They've won 5 straight series. That matches their longest streak since 2012. In September of 2012, they also had a 5-series stretch. Three and 0. Ball 4, 4-pitch walk with 2 outs here in the ninth. Jose Perella in his first game of the season has had a good night. The number 9 hitter has gone 2 for 3. He doubled in his first at bat in the third. Just activated off the disabled list. First pitch curveball.
Like to see Brett stay aggressive right here with that 5-1 lead. Get that fastball away and get yourself a ground ball.
Ball on the strike. That ball gets away from Martin, and Drew will move up. Not sure what happened there.
Well, it looked like Russ just misplayed that ball off of his glove. Good curveball from Cecil down in the zone.
Good pass ball charge to Martin. 21,312 on their feet. Russell may have gotten that one in their throat.
Well, as a catcher, you want to get down to your knees, and he gets into great position, but you watch what this ball does. Spiking it into the ground, you've got to tuck that chin right into your chest. He didn't quite get that chin down there. That ball came up and got him in the throat.
Well, you see that extension on the bottom of that mask that's designed to deflect those balls. There's a strikeout. Martin will throw to first. Ball game. The Blue Jays win the series. They snap the Yankees stretch of 5 straight series. Career night for Chris Colabello. His first 4-hit night. Russell Martin, he's on fire. Another home run and a 3-hit night for Martin. And he's got a bruise for all of his efforts.
Big series win for the Blue Jays, especially coming home from that road trip, the devastating loss Sunday in Cleveland. But it all starts on the mound. R.A. Dickey and Mark Burley turned in good starts. They are the leaders in this rotation. They led the Blue Jays to their 2 wins in this series. They have to continue to lead, and they have to be better and show the kids the way. Starting pitching is paramount. Mark Burley stepped up today.
Mark Burley improves to 4-2, his second win in his career against the Yankees. Coming up next, Sportsnet Central on now. The Habs and the Lightning here in the third period, and also the Rangers in camps. We'll be back on Friday night. The Boston Red Sox will be here at Rogers Center. Aaron Sanchez will open things up. Here's Ken and Ivanka. Thanks for watching.